is here. The opening is ready, get set, go. They're getting ready to go into the promised land here. The nation of Israel is at this point, they're on the verge of entering the promised land. And this is, I put together here myself, the entering of the promised land. Moses is having to provide reminders and instructions for the nation made up of a new generation. Because what has happened, the old generation, the parents that murmured and complained from what?
They all died, anybody that was over 20 years old.
That's right, 20 years old and above, except for Moses and at this time, Moses and Caleb and Joshua. Of course, they didn't. But all those others, you got to knew the children. The children grew up and the children had families. And they're the ones getting ready to go in. This is a new generation going in. So now Moses is at the point, he has to remind them a few things. And you'll see that here as we go through the book of Numbers here. And he does it in Deuteronomy as well to remind them. So also what's happened here, and I've put this out here, so this is part of getting into the lesson, is the reputation of what the Lord has done for them. Keep in mind, they crossed the Red Sea how many years ago? From this point on, how many years ago did they cross the Red Sea? 40 years ago. But that key thing, and I've tried to point out to you before, that's a key thing that you see recurring in Scripture. You'll see it in the book of Joshua too. When the spies go in and talk to Rahab, they knew about that. Something that happened 40 years ago, an event that took place, was an impression on them. But also the Lord's reputation of taking care of Israel in the wilderness for all these years. And now they come to this point to enter the promised land. And you got here this guy, the king of Moab, he's trying to stop them. We're going to talk about that in a moment, about king of Moab trying to stop them. And they don't know anything about it. Israel doesn't know anything about this plan for them, him trying to stop them. So before entering the promised destination, they will have to be counted again. You'll see that. They'll be counted again. They will be given a new leader. They will face additional enemies, and they will address a request for early settlement, and they will have reminders. So all of this is preparing for them to get into the promised land. Things had to take place before that. So here's the points I'm trying to cover this morning for you. I'm talking about Balaam and the king of Moab. We'll talk about the recount, Joshua, the new leader, and starting to settle in. We'll talk about that, and of course, where have you been? We'll talk about that, about what takes place in this book. Excuse me. Book here. All right, you've seen this. You don't have this. I got copies of this up here for you, this timeline of what I put together for you. I don't have the pointer for me. I didn't think about that. But if you look up there, you'll see over there where it says C, 6C over there. That's what I'm trying to cover here, numbers here. And they're in Moab is where they're at. So the ones that got stars beside them are the ones I'm getting ready to address this morning with you. Not all the events. We can cover a lot in Numbers. I mean, it's a series can be done completely on Numbers for a long time, the book of Numbers. But I wanted you to see some of the key events here we're just going to point out here this morning. And then, of course, next week we'll deal with the other part with Deuteronomy, of course. So Balaam and the king of Moab, Numbers chapter 22, if you'll turn there, please. If you haven't already been there, Numbers chapter 22. And the children of Israel set forward and pitched in the plains of Moab on this side of Jordan by Jericho. Now, Jericho's where? I don't have a map here to show you, but where's Jericho at? Oh, come on, Bible people. Where's Jericho located at? On which side of the river? Which side? On the west side, right? They haven't crossed over, but it's over across the river. Israel are round about us as the ox licketh up the grass of the field. And Balak, the son of Zippor, was king of the Moabites at this time. He sent messengers, therefore, unto Balaam, the son of Beor, to Pithor, which is by the river of the land of the children of his people, to call him, saying, Behold, there is a people come out from Egypt. Behold, they cover the face of the earth, and they abide over against me. Come now, therefore, I pray thee, curse me this people, for they are too mighty for me. Peradventure I shall prevail, but that we might smite them, and that I might drive them out of the land. For what he whom thou blessest is blessed, and whom thou cursest is cursed. And the elders of Moab and the elders of Midian departed with the rewards of divination in their hand, and they came unto Balaam and spoke unto him the words of Balak. So Balak is the king of Moab. And they're going to talk to Balaam here. And Balaam's a false prophet, basically what he is, okay? And they're going to come to him, and they've asked him, this king of Moab has asked, hey, come and curse these people. There's something to keep in mind here, this thing here I got here, the point, you've already read, probably seen the bullets here. The story of King Balak and the soothsayer Balaam has basically two main things. The key thing is the curse on Israel was sought. He sought that curse for Israel. And the blessing on Israel was really given. There was no cursing of Israel. Balaam is not allowed to curse Israel, okay? And I like this last statement here. I thought it was very interesting to think about, that all the action took place. All of this story that goes on in these chapters here, chapters 22 through 25, Israel doesn't know anything about this. Kind of like the scene, behind the scenes, what's going on. They don't know about this calling of the king of Moab trying to get Balaam to do this, to curse them and all that. But God's involved in this conversation with them. He's involved with this whole situation. But Israel's leaders, they don't know anything about this taking place, going to take place at all. Doesn't it remind you of something else, of another event in Bible history we talked about, Bible times? I know it's been over a few weeks, I understand. It's been several months back we talked about this character, one whole book about this whole guy. He's the most righteous person on the earth at the time. What'd you say?
Job.
Oh, yeah, you remembered. Okay, Job. Remember Job? All the events that took place with Job, that he had no idea what was going on with Satan trying to disrupt his life and all that. The conversation between the Lord and Satan, what was going on. Job had no idea about this. Here's a situation here, not same situation, but a similar thing. Israel, who is innocent and doing what they're supposed to be doing, following the leading, but yet behind the scenes, there's evil going on, stirring up some evil here, trying to take place against them. And of course, the Lord is intervening. We don't know in our lives how many times God has protected us in so many different ways, you know? We don't know all those times He's done things for us, where Satan's tried to do something against us, and the Lord's always taking care of us in so many ways. So look in here. If you see, we're going to jump down. I'm not going to cover verse by verse through this book, of course. But if you look down through here, in the events that take place in chapter 22, goes on, there's three times Balak is addressed here. Let me back this over so you don't get distracted with it. There's three times he is addressed with this about cursing Israel. And they set up this, and Balaam's going for this whole thing. He tells Balak, okay, set up these 7 sacrifices, 7 bullocks and 7 rams, and do these sacrifices and all this. Goes through this and do it in another place. And they do it 3 different places. They do these same things over and over. But each time he goes, and Balaam goes back talking to the Lord, and the Lord talks to him. And if you look down in verse 20, and God came unto Balaam at night and said unto him, if the men come to call thee, rise up and go with them. But yet the word which I shall say unto thee, that shalt thou do. And Balaam rose up in the morning and saddled his ass and went with the princes of Moab. See, the princes of Moab have come to get Balaam to come and do this cursing. Now, he already knows that God won't allow this cursing, but he still participates. He still goes through this whole process. Because what's he looking for? What is Balaam looking for? Money. Love of money. The love of money here. And it goes on in verse 22, and God's anger was kindled because he went, and the angel of the Lord stood in the way for an adversary against him. Now he was riding upon his ass, and his 2 servants were with him. And the ass saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way, and his sword drawing in his hand, and the ass turned aside out of the way and went into the field, and Balaam smote the ass to turn her into the way. And the angel of the Lord stood in the path of the vineyards, a wall being on this side and a wall on that side. And when the ass saw the angel of the Lord, she thrust herself into the wall and crushed Balaam's foot against the wall, and he smote her again. And the angel of the Lord went further and stood in a narrow place where there was no way to turn, either to the right hand or to the left. And when the ass saw the angel of the Lord, she fell down under Balaam, and Balaam's anger was kindled, and he smote the ass with a staff. And the Lord opened the mouth of the ass, and she said unto Balaam, what have I done unto thee? That'd be a shocker, wouldn't it? I mean, a total shocker in this whole thing. What have I done unto thee, that thou hast smitten me these 3 times? And Balaam said unto the ass, because thou hast mocked me, I would there was a sword. I would there was a sword in my hand, for I knew now would I kill thee. And the ass said unto Balaam, am not I thine ass, and upon which thou hast ridden ever since I was thine unto this day? And was I ever wont to do so unto thee? And he said, nay. Then the Lord opened the eyes of Balaam, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way, and his sword drawing in his hand. And he bowed down his head and fell flat on the earth, flat on his face. And the angel of the Lord said unto him, wherefore hast thou smitten thine ass these 3 times? Behold, I went out to withstand thee, because thy way is perverse before thee. And the ass saw me and turned from me these 3 times. Unless she had turned from me, surely now also I had slain thee and saved her life. Saved by a donkey. You think about it. And the angel of the Lord said unto Balaam, go with the men, but only the word that I shall speak unto thee. Thou shalt speak. So Balak went with the princes of Balak. And when Balak heard that Balaam was come, he went out to meet him into the city. So we're not going to read all that part. So Balak is excited. Balaam has shown up and all that. So now Balaam is going to explain to him he cannot curse them. And no matter how much Balak tries to try to persuade him. Balak even offered, I didn't read that part, but Balaam said, even if he gave me a house full of gold and silver, it wouldn't make any difference. But in the background, he's still looking for notoriety. He's still looking for, fame. He's still looking for money. So the short of it is, he didn't win. He wasn't able to curse them, but he did give a blessing, like I showed you here in chapter 22, verses 41 through chapter 24, verse 20 down to 25 there. So all this took place outside their knowledge. But let's go to this part about the way of Balaam. The way of Balaam, the error of Balaam, and the doctrine of Balaam. You probably have heard these before, seen these before, and I didn't print out my notes. I just realized I didn't print those out, but I'll have to work without those. So as you see here, there's 3 phrases here in the scriptures that talks about Balaam. The way of Balaam is 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 15. Let me turn there. I had it printed out, but I don't have it now. So 2 Peter 2:15. I'm going to turn to these now, the old-fashioned way. 2 Peter 2:15. Which have forsaken the right way and are gone astray, following the way of Balaam, the son of Bosor, who loved the wages of unrighteousness. And it says here, this is from J. Vernon McGee's, I thought was good points how he laid this out here for us, was that he prostituted his gift for gain. He was covetous. He commercialized the office. He was looking for money, using that for his way of Balaam. The error of Balaam, Jude chapter 11. Jude chapter 11 here. If you haven't seen that, we'll jump over, or chapter 11, verse 11. It's no chapter. Jude, verse 11. Woe unto them, for they have gone in the way of Cain and ran greedily after the error of Balaam for reward and perished in the gainsaying of Kor. He talks about this was that he concluded a righteous God must curse Israel. He was unaware of the grace of God revealed in God's redemption of Israel out of Egypt. And that was something that they didn't realize. It was by God's hand, by God's grace, taking care of Israel through all of this that they went through. And the last one here is the doctrine of Balaam. Remember we did the book of Revelation several months ago. We talked about the book of Revelation. But the doctrine of Balaam in Revelation chapter 2, verse 14, right over here, 2:14. But I have a few things against thee, because thou hast there them that hold the doctrine of Balaam, who taught Balak to cast a stumbling block before the children of Israel, to eat things sacrificed unto idols, and to commit fornication. And as you see here, and let's go to Numbers chapter 31. You'll have to see that in Numbers 31. Way over Numbers 31. Whoop. As it says here, the counsel of Balak was finding that he could not curse Israel, but he gave Balak an idea what to do, how to make them stumble, how to create a break down the wall of separation by marriage with women of Moab. As you see in Numbers chapter 31, in 31 verse 15 and 16, it says here. Let's back it up just a little bit. Verse 13. And Moses and Eleazar, the priests, and all the princes of the congregation went forth to meet them without the camp. And Moses was wroth with the officers of the host, with the captains over thousands, captains over hundreds, with which came from the battle. And Moses said unto them, have you saved all the women alive? Behold, these caused the children of Israel through the counsel of Balaam to commit trespass against the Lord in the matter of Beor. And there was a plague among the congregation of the Lord. Because of what Balaam had told, these women of Moab had intermixed with the Israelites. And of course, their plague came, and several died from it. Before I move off from here, and I had my note, I can't remember where it's at, but later on, where's that at? I want to see. I wish I drew it. But Balaam is finally killed. He happens to be at the wrong place at the wrong time for him, and he's killed. And I can't remember the passage right now where it was at. But Balaam winds up getting killed when they attacked the Midianites. That's probably in chapter 31, further down. Oh yeah, probably right there. I've just missed it. I'm sorry, I can't remember exactly where it was at. But when they fought the Midianites, Balaam was killed in that situation there. So here was a king who tried to do something, tried to interfere with Israel, and doing it in the background that Israel had no idea what was going on. But the Lord was in control of all of that taking place. So moving on, the recount. The recount in chapters 26, Numbers 26. Back further. And it came to pass after the plague that the Lord spake unto Moses and Moses and unto Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, chapter 26, verse 1. And he says, take the sum of the congregation of the children of Israel from 20 years old and upward throughout their father's house, all that are able to go to war in Israel. And Moses and Eleazar, the priest, spake unto them in the plains of Moab by Jordan near Jericho. It says, take the sum of the people from 20 years old and upward, and as the Lord commanded Moses and the children of Israel, which went forth out of the land of Egypt. And then it goes through each one of the tribes and how many of each tribe is counted in there. This table, this note here that you see here, there was a first count in chapter 1. Now there's a second count in chapter 26. And as you see that, I don't know how well you can see the table there. You should be able to see it. There was like a difference of about 1,800 difference. Less people this time around. Now this is only counting who? The men who are 20 years old and above who are able to go to war. That's who is counting them for this purpose here. Slightly different there for them. That's what I said. So Joshua, chapter 27 is talk about Joshua here. Now let me ask you this. I didn't ask you this earlier, but when you kept seeing these passages here talk about Moses and Eleazar, where's Aaron? What happened to Aaron? He died, didn't he? Died before he ever got to this point at Mount Hor. He died there. Okay. And of course that was Miriam had died, and then Aaron had died. And these are Moses' sister and his brother had been with him all these years, been working with him together all these years here. Now they have passed away. Now it's getting to the point, and Moses knows that he's going to die. He knows that. He's been already told by the Lord what's going to happen to him. So this is part we get here to chapter 27. If you see down chapter 27, go down here. 27 verse 12. And the Lord said unto Moses, get thee up unto Mount Abarim, and see the land which I have given unto the children of Israel. And when thou hast seen it, thou also shalt be gathered unto thy people, as Aaron thy brother was gathered. For ye rebelled against my commandment in the desert of Zin, in the strife of the congregation, to sanctify me at the water before their eyes. That is the water of Meribah in Kadesh, in the wilderness of Zin. So the Lord's telling him a reminder in a way what's going to happen. And he's telling him also, Moses, you go up to this mountain and you can do what? You can see, but you're not going in. You can see the land, but you're not allowed to go in. Because of why? Because I hear...
He disobeyed. He struck the rock and he was only supposed to speak to it.
That's right. He disobeyed. He disobeyed. And Aaron was with him when they disobeyed the Lord. Because remember when we talked about that point, when he disobeyed, what did he say to them? What did Moses say to the people? They've been murmuring and griping again. They needed water. So how did he respond to them?
He said, must I give you water out of this rock?
Yeah, must we, and he's talking about we, him and Aaron, must we do this? Versus just following God's command. And God's command was to do what? To speak to the rock, not hit it again. Okay. So with that, he didn't do what was right in the sight of the people, about glorifying the Lord, how the Lord wanted things done. So with that, he knew he was not going into the promised land. Wouldn't it be interesting if you knew? The Lord says, you knew your death is imminent. You just knew it was going to take place. You just don't know when, but now the Lord's saying, okay, now you're going to go up to the mountain, and now you're going to do this, and it's coming close. But in this time here, I want you to see, and that's why I made this note down here for you. Moses' concern was not for the coming of his coming death, but the care of the nation. You realize he's been their leader for 40 years. Before that, when they left to get him out of Egypt, he had a concern for them. And if he's been their leader, it's kind of like their father in a way, taking care. You got a lot of new people have come up, and families have seen them come and grow, and others have passed away. He's over 100 some years old. I can't remember exactly what the number is right now. I think 120, but I'm not sure when he passes away. But you think about how old he's gotten, taking care of them. And now his concern is for this nation of Israel, God's people. And he says to the Lord down there, he says, let the Lord, the God of the spirits of all flesh, set a man over the congregation. And interesting that Moses was not the one allowed to make the decision to choose who it was to be. He asked the Lord, Lord, who do you want to take the place? So go down in chapter 27 again. In verse 15, and Moses spake unto the Lord, saying, let the Lord, the God of the spirits of all flesh, set a man over the congregation, which may go out before them, which may go in before them, which may lead them out, which may bring them in, and the congregation of the Lord be not as sheep who have no shepherd. And the Lord said unto Moses, take thee Joshua the son of Nun, a man in whom is the Spirit, and lay thy hand upon him, and set him before Eleazar the priest and before the congregation, and give him a charge in their sight. And thou shalt put some of thy honor upon him, and all the congregation, the children of Israel, may be that all the children of the congregation of Israel may be obedient. And he shall stand before Eleazar the priest, who shall ask counsel for him after the judgment of Urim and before the Lord. At his word shall they go out, and at his word they shall come in, both he and all the children of Israel with him, even all the congregation. And Moses did as the Lord commanded him, and he took Joshua and set him before Eleazar the priest, before all the congregation, and he laid his hands upon him and gave him a charge, as the Lord commanded by the hand of Moses. Joshua was the new leader. He was going to be the new leader. He was appointed in front of the people. They all knew that, who was going to be the new leader. And I think this is good here that Dr. Cloud brings these points out here. I think it's interesting here to see these points here about Joshua. Caleb was also important. Don't get me wrong. Caleb was very important, but God chose Joshua to be this man, take this position. Joshua had proven himself faithful. He had proven himself for 40 years. He was Moses' helper. He loved to spend time in God's presence. He was a brave military leader. He's the one that did the fighting that they had to do in Exodus 17. He was a man of faith who believed God when the other spies did not. We talked about that, how he stood and tried to convince everybody, we need to go into the land. We can do this. Very adamant about him and Caleb. He did not join in any of the murmurings and rebellions against Moses during the 40-year warning, and he never turned against Moses. How many times it happens when you got a leader and you got somebody close to them and somebody turns against the leader. That's sad. And here Moses is a great leader, and he's got a great guy working with him in the background, doing whatever he needed to be done. Joshua was that man, his right-hand man, doing the things he needed done to serve him. But the key thing is, Moses did not make the appointment. God made the appointment. It was God's chosen man for that. I don't know if you remember earlier, about the rebellion of Korah? Remember them? Remember those guys who got together and the 250 princes and all that? They got together and what did they say? Who made you? Who made you our leader? It was by God's hand that he was made the leader. Moses was made the leader. So starting to settle in, chapter 32. Go down chapter 32. So chapter 32, I know I'm skipping a lot of things that we can go over here. But chapter 32, Reuben and Gad are asking Moses. In chapter 32, verse 1. Now the children of Reuben and the children of Gad had a very great multitude of cattle, and when they saw the land of Jazer and the land of Gilead, that behold, the place was a place for cattle. The children of Gad and the children of Reuben came and spake unto Moses and Eleazar the priest and unto the princes of the congregation, saying, at Adaroth and Dibon and Jazer and Nimrod and Heshbon and Eliah and Sheba and Nebo and Beon, even the children which the Lord smote before the congregation of Israel, is a land of cattle, and thy servants have cattle. Wherefore, said they, if we have found grace in thy sight, let this land be given unto thy servants for a possession, and bring us not over Jordan. Now here it's some of the tribes are saying, hey, we want to be on this side of Jordan. And we're asking permission to be on this side. The land is great for our cattle. We have the cattle. Well, you can see the map. But the map there has the top section is going to be the half tribe of Manasseh there. In the middle section is going to be Gad. And the bottom section down there, that light green, is going to be Reuben taking that possession of that land. But they've asked Moses, hey, we got a lot of cattle. This is great land. We want to be on this side. So what do you see there? You see here, because Moses has a problem with this a little bit at the beginning of this. If you see, and Moses said unto the children of Gad and to the children of Reuben, shall your brethren go to war, and shall ye sit here? Wherefore discourage ye the heart of the children of Israel from going over into the land which the Lord hath given them? Thus did your fathers when I sent them from Kadesh Barnea to see the land. And when they went up into the valley of Escar and saw the land, they discouraged the heart of the children of Israel, that they should not go into the land which the Lord had given them. And the Lord's anger was kindled the same time, and he sware, saying, surely none of the men which came out of Egypt. And I'm going to stop. I'm going to speed over that part there. He's laying out before. What is Moses telling them? Do you remember when the spies went into the land? Do you remember when the spies came out of the land and what they did? Those 10 spies, what did they do? They discouraged the people. And Moses is looking at this. This might discourage the people for going into the land if you decide to stay on this side. And that's why he's looking at this, trying to point out to them. If you stay on this side, it might be a discouragement to the rest. You don't want. And what did happen with the discouragement? With the time of the Kadesh Barnea. What happened with that discouragement there? With those 10 spies? It brought judgment on them, didn't it? Because they would not go into where God had promised them to go. It brought that judgment on them. So Moses is bringing that to their attention there. And go down here in verse 16. And they came near unto him and said, we will build sheepfolds here for our cattle, and cities for our little ones. But we ourselves will go ready, armed before the children of Israel, until we have brought them into their place, and our little ones shall dwell in the fenced cities because of the inhabitants of the land. We will not return unto our houses until the children of Israel have inherited every man his inheritance. And we will not inherit with them, for we will not inherit with them on yonder side of Jordan or forward, because our inheritance is fallen to us on this side of Jordan eastward. And Moses said unto them, if you will do this thing, if you will go armed before the Lord to war, and will go all of your armed over Jordan before the Lord until have driven out his enemies from before him, and the land be subdued before the Lord, then afterward ye shall return and be guiltless before the Lord and before Israel, and this shall be our possession, be your possession before the Lord. So they promised what? They promised they would go. We will go, our men, we will settle our families here, but we will go as armed, we will go and fight ahead. We will go with you. We will not stop until the rest of the nation has their inheritance there. To stick with it. They agreed, as you see here, they agreed. And so half the tribe of Manasseh also asked to be stayed on this side as well. Here's a good point I thought was interesting, that Moses curbed a situation that thought could be worse. Another internal crisis, quietly simmering in one faction of Israel because of the lust of the eyes, was thus quickly extinguished by the gifted leader and man of God, Moses, who never did retire from his duty as long as he was given breath. He knew how to wisely address these guys, these families, I say the guys, the families, Gad and Reuben and the half-tribe of Manasseh, how to address them. About, we got to be courage, so we don't discourage the whole people, all the people. Discouragement affects a lot of people, doesn't it? We've seen that before. They've seen it 40 years earlier. They saw that discouragement took place, whatever, when they were at the Kadesh Barnea, when the spies. Discouragement impacts other people. Your discouragement, any one of our discouragement can impact other people around you. Can it not? You're murmuring, you're complaining, it can affect other people around you. Just something to think about. How do we carry ourselves? How do we do what is right? Okay? So we're getting ready to be done here. So where have you been? Numbers chapter 33. We talked about this briefly last week, and that I gave you that handout up there. It has all these different things about Numbers 33. I pointed out then, but I wanted to point out again to you here, Numbers 33. If you happen to read through Numbers 33, he says here, the recapitulation was in order. Therefore, and so Moses recorded the list of the journeys of the Israelites from the time of the Exodus from Egypt. In chapter 33, verses 1 all the way down, he goes through. I want to remember that list. I probably should put that list up there for you again. It just shows list of what? Shows where they had been, different places. And what did I tell you about that list also? Do you remember? I know I ask a lot of questions, and it's a Sunday morning. It's been rainy all weekend. I understand that. So what stood out about that whole list? Did anything stand out about that list? That list where he goes through it. And we can look down there and see, if you want to look at sampling of the list, verse 6, and they departed from Sukkoth and pitched in Etham, which is in the wilderness, the edge of the wilderness. And they removed from Etham, and they went unto Perahara, which is before these other names. I can't pronounce all of these. But he goes, and what is he talking about? He's just saying, we went from here, we went from here, we went from here, we went from here. So what happened? Anything stand out?
They were going to drive out the inhabitants.
I'm sorry?
They were going to drive out the inhabitants of the land.
No, this is in the wilderness. They're in the wilderness.
So they're traveling back around to some of the same places.
Well, they did come back to Kadesh Barnea. That came back to that. But there's something else that you might have not. Was there any key events? Was there any events that took really place in any of those towns that he talks about? Nothing. He just says, we went to here. We went to this location, went to this location. Constantly these different locations. But no key events took place. Nothing stood out because what was happening to them? What was happening to them? For 30-some years, they're almost 38-some years, what's happening to them? They're dying off. They're burying people almost every day probably, or having to die off. And of course, there's families and there's having children and all that. But there's no big events taking place. Nothing recorded here for them at all. And Moses is laying out them, here, this is where we've been. Y'all are some of the new generation here. This is where we have been. You probably were little, you're just little children. Some of you just were born, didn't even know about some of these places. This is where we've been. And God does this. So why does he tell them that? That's my question here. Why was this recorded here?
To remind them of what happens when you don't follow God and trust in him.
Good point. Good point. Because we saw that, I don't have the map in front of me, but you saw that map where it's like going in the wilderness. Because of why? Because of disbelief, not trusting the Lord, and just wandering around. What about in our lives? If the Lord says us to do something, he wants us to do something, we don't do it. And then things happen in our lives. Why is this happening in my life? What is it? So how are you walking with the Lord? Are you really walking with the Lord like you should be? The key is, are you walking with the Lord? And they did not do that. They followed him like they had to because they suffered the consequences of disbelief. That's what they were suffering for. So here's the last of this. Conclusion. I pulled this out as the conclusion, the cities of refuge. In chapter 35, I think it's important to know these cities of refuge. In Numbers 35, the Lord commanded Moses to provide 48 cities to the Levites for their inheritance. Now, the 12 tribes that you see in the scene on the maps before, The Levites don't have a territory as such. They don't have a section that these are all the Levites in this one area. The Levites were where? They were out scattered throughout the nation. And they were given 48 cities were given to them, and the suburbs of that was given to them for their inheritance. And 6 of those were to be cities of refuge. If you look down in verse, where is it at? Verse 8. Or verse 6, we'll back it up, verse 6. And among the cities which ye shall give unto the Levites, there shall be 6 cities for refuge, which ye shall appoint for the manslayer, that he may flee thither, and to them ye shall add 42 cities. And all the cities which ye shall give to the Levites shall be 48 cities. Them shall ye give with them, with their suburbs. And the cities which ye shall give shall be the possession of the children of Israel. From them that have many ye shall give many, and from them that have few ye shall give few. Every one shall give of the cities unto the Levites, according to the inheritance which he had inherited. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, When ye be come over Jordan into the land of Canaan, then ye shall appoint ye cities to be cities of refuge for you. Excuse me. That the slayer may be flee thither, which killeth any person at unawares. And they shall be unto you cities for refuge from the avenger, and for the manslayer die not, that the manslayer die not, until they stand before the congregation in judgment. And all these cities which ye shall give, 6 cities shall have for refuge. And ye shall give 3 cities on this side of Jordan, and 3 cities shall ye give in this land of Canaan, which shall be cities of refuge. These 6 cities shall be a refuge both for the children of Israel, and for the stranger, and for the sojourner among them, that every one that killeth any person unawares may flee thither. That if he smite him with an instrument of iron, so that he dieth, he is a murderer. The murderer shall surely be put to death. And if he smite him with throwing of stone, therefore that he may die, and he die, and he is a murderer, the murderer shall surely be put to death. Or if he smite him with a hand of weapon of war, wherefore he may die, he die. He is a murderer, and the murderer shall surely be put to death. The revenger of blood himself shall slay the murderer when he meeteth, and he shall slay him. But if he thrust him of hatred, or hurl him by laying of weight, then he die. Or if an enemy smite them. I'm not going to read all this. It keeps going further. But the manslayer, a couple of things here. Hopefully wrap this up quickly. A couple of things you see here. You should see here. What is important? People's lives. And taking of a life is very important. And God, the shedding of blood, he doesn't like the shedding of blood, but it has to happen sometimes. But here, somebody accidentally kills somebody. They had a chance to flee to a city. And as I don't know if you see that note down there that I got from this old dictionary here. He said it was calculated that the distance of these cities to city be approximately 70 miles. So there was at least about a 35-mile run. In other words, if you accidentally killed somebody, you got to get on the road. You got to get moving to this place and get there in time, because the avenger, the one say it's a family member, they could take your life. But if you got to the city of refuge, you had to stay there and stay before until they had a meeting, as you see in verse 12, until he stand before the congregation in judgment. And they had to stay there until the priest died. Hopefully you didn't have a young priest, but had to stay there. But God made allowances. God helped them with so many things. And another thing I think you've pointed out as I was reading this, he allowed them also, remember with Gad and I don't have the, well, you see part of that. Gad and Reuben and half tribe of Manasseh wanted to be on the east side. God did what? He provided cities on that side as well for them. He accepted to give them cities on that side. So both sides had cities, these cities of refuge. Running out of time real quickly. These cities of refuge, this is real quick here. The names of these cities also are significant in that each relates directly to the person of Christ. Kadesh means holy. Shechem means shoulder. Hebron means fellowship. Bezor means fortification. Ramoth, high or exalted. And Golan means joy. And each one of these, I have the passages over here, and I meant to read all that to you, but all these passages referring to our Lord Jesus Christ. Because we can come to Christ as our Savior, right? And we can come to Christ when we mess up. We sin, we fail. After we're saved, We do mess up, don't you? I mean, I think everybody messes up somewhere. I mean, we all sin somewhere. But we can still come to him, can we not? He wants us to come to him.